Hey friends! Today I'm going to go over in gory detail how to use my Magic PicURL Generator Excel template. If you're wondering what those words mean. So a while ago I did a series on how to bulk upload listings to eBay using a CSV file or Excel file, as is commonly the case. So it's a 6-part series. You can go back and watch it if you think this might be useful to you. And one of the things that was involved in this was generating URLs to put in your spreadsheet for your pictures, which are hosted elsewhere. In my example, I used Amazon AWS, which I highly recommend, but have no stake in. The deal is that you save your images in a certain format with sequential numbers, and then in Excel you use a formula to generate the URLs leading to those images by making Excel generate those sequential numbers for you in the right format. And I made a template that you can use and just plug in your data into the formula, and it will do it automatically. But you have to understand what to plug in where, and it is a little bit oblique, shall we say. So I'm gonna just put this video out there showing you exactly how to use the Magic PicURL Generator. And if none of that is relevant to you, please just walk away and watch something else on my channel, because this is very specific. But hopefully, for those who need it, it will be helpful. So here we go. This is what the Magic PicURL Generator template looks like. It's an Excel file. It has 2 columns, increment and PicURL. The increment column is already set up, counting by 2s. This assumes you're going to use 2 pictures per listing. However, you don't have to. If you're going to use 1 picture per listing or 12 pictures per listing, you can do that too. And I'll talk about that at the end. The other column is where your URLs are going to be generated. And how this works is that the first one you put a formula on, and then you copy that formula to all of these cells. So the formula is up here in the formula bar, and that's what we're going to go over in detail in the following pages. All right, this is the whole formula, and this is already in there for you. You don't have to type it or anything. And I just want to show you that the way this works, this character here, which is called a pipe, and you get it by doing shift and then backslash, which is usually above enter or return on your keyboard. That pipe character separates your images. So if you have 2 images, one is on this side of the pipe and one is on this side of the pipe. That will just help you to understand what all this gobbledygook is. Now we're going to look at the formula in detail. If you're working along with me in Excel, if you click on this first cell here, which is B2, you will have the formula pop up in the formula bar, which is this thing, this FX looking thing, stands for formula, and it will automatically go in there. Now we're going to change it to make this work for your actual information. In this video, the pink parts you should just leave as is. The orange parts you might need to change, but you might not. And the blue parts you definitely need to change. So here's an overview. Now I'm going to go over each part in particular. All right. We begin with the equal sign. Just leave it. That tells Excel that this is a formula. Then we start with an open quote, and just leave that. That tells Excel that we're starting the thing that we want to print. Like, hey Excel, put the stuff in the quote marks down in my cells. And then https:// also just leave there. That is the beginning of your URL. It's definitely what Amazon AWS uses, and also eBay requires that you host somewhere that starts with https:// because that means it's a secure server as opposed to one that's just HTTP. So that's going to be the same for everyone, this whole pink part here. So just leave it. All right, next is a blue part, which means we need to change it. And this is the server where your pictures are hosted. And for me, that is Amazon AWS, and that's how I showed you to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but if you did, your URL is going to be something like your bucket name, which is an arbitrary name you chose for your whole like master folder of images, then .s3.us east to .amazonaws.com. Now yours might not be US East, it might be a different location, this might be varied, but it's going to be something like this and end in .aws.com. Now if you've decided to organize your images into folders on AWS or elsewhere, which I did not show you in the video, but a lot of people have suggested as a good way to keep organized, and they are correct, then your URL that goes in this blue part is going to be something more like your arbitrary bucket name, this S3 blah 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 AmazonaWS.com / the name of your folder. That might be the date, or it might be postcards, or whatever the name of your folder is that you made up yourself. That's all going to go in that part, and it ends with this /, which is a little confusing that I put it here and not here, but it ends with the /. All right, next, the prefix. Now, when I did the videos, I showed you using a prefix because that's how I do it. May not be the best way to do it. You might want to use folders, but you can use prefixes, and all that is some bit of text or numbers or whatever that you append to the beginning of every image name. And I do that before I upload my images. Obviously I use today's date. So for me, if I'm going to search for a bunch of images on Amazon, I'll look under the date that I processed them. Maybe not Earth's most intuitive system, I will admit. But if you do that, like I do, and maybe you don't use the date, maybe you use the type of thing it is, that's fine too. You will type that bit of text right here under prefix. If you don't use a prefix, you can just delete this. And the reason it has an underscore is because that is part of my prefix. Like I do the date and then an underscore and then the number of the image. You could do postcards and then a hyphen and then the number of the images, or you could do postcards and no hyphen and the number of the image, or whatever. But however you've created your image file name convention, if there's something after the URL part, put it in here. And you can check this out if you go into Amazon AWS, go into your bucket, find your image you want to use as an example, and if you click through, it's going to give you information about it, including its full URL, so you can take a look at how it works, see how it, your / folder or / prefix or however all plays out when it's all set up. You can double check yourself. If you have a prefix, use it. If you don't, delete this orange part. Next, this part in pink stays put as it is. So we have a quote, and that's actually an internal quote inside this set of quotes, but that doesn't really matter. And then we're just saying that Excel needs to look at cell A2 and grab the number from there, which in the case of the first line of the document as I presented it to you would be 1. Combine that with this digit format, which is 4 digits, so it's going to be 0001. The cat wants to go in the closet. One moment. There you go. Okay. So just leave this text as is, this pink part. The 0000, you may be able to just leave as is if your images are named with 4-digit numbers. And that is, again, what I showed you in the video. So they'd be 0001, 0002, or 1001, 1002, etc. So if you did name your images that way, just leave this as it is. If you named your images with 3-digit numbers, just delete one of these zeros and it will be like 001, 002, or 101, 102. And if you named your images with just 2 digits because you have sworn up and down you will never list more than 99 things, then you just delete 2 zeros and have 2 left here. So this just determines the format of your numbering. Next, we have some more pink stuff you don't need to worry about, but we're closing the quote, we're closing the parenthesis, and we're using an ampersand to concatenate or append some more information, and we're closing this other quote, and just leave it be. Oh, and a dot, a period. And then next, if your files are PNG files, you can just leave this if indeed they are JPEGs. If they are indeed JPEGs, you can change it to JPG. And JPEGs are actually the preferred format. I'm not sure why I showed you PNGs, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. JPEG is just what eBay will turn it into anyway, so you might as well. And that is everything in this first half of the formula. Then we have the pipe. And that's important. If you have more than one image, you separate them with pipes. So if you have 2 images, put a pipe between them. If you have 3, put a pipe after the second one as well. It just separates the images. So if you're only using one, you can delete this, and if you are using 2, you can go on. All right, this is the second part of the formula. You'll notice it's exactly the same as the first part except for one thing. So we leave this stuff. There's no quote or equals at the beginning because that we only needed to do once. And we leave all of this stuff in pink, and we leave all of this stuff. It's exactly the same as before, but you'll notice that instead of just A2 here, it's A2 plus 1, because what Excel is doing in this case is looking at the number in cell A2, which in the case of the first line of the template is 1, and then it's adding 1 to it. So A2 plus 1 would equal 2, because this is in fact picture 2, and then it's going to format it 0002, and there you go. So everything else do the same way as we did in the first part. You change your URL here. If you have a prefix, you put it in, or you can delete the word prefix underscore. And if you're using a JPEG, change PNG to JPEG. Just, you can basically not copy it, but you can copy, you know, this part and just fix this up. And then what you do, if you're using 2 pictures, you're all set now. So hit return in the formula bar up here where we've been working, and it should now populate your actual real formula into this first cell in the PicURL column. So it should be whatever your thing is, your URL is, whatever your prefix is if you have one, and then 0001 or 001 or 01, and then a pipe, and then all that stuff again, and then 002. So take a look, make sure that that happened correctly, and if so, all you need to do is grab this little handle here, and by handle I mean this very small green dot in the case of my Excel, and you pull it down as far as numbers, the numbers go that represent the number of pictures you have. I went down to 31, which means I have 32 pictures. No, that's confusing, but check the last image to make sure it's the same number as the number of pictures you have. You just pull that down. If you do too many, that's fine, it doesn't matter. You then select as many as you want to paste into your real template. So in this case, I'm going to select all 17 rows, which takes me up to 0032 picture. And I hit copy in the menu, or Command or Control C. And then I paste it into the PicURL column in my real template. And when I do that, I don't just hit paste, I hit paste special, which on Mac is like Command Option V, I think, and it's in the edit menu. Just look for it, and you want to choose the option that says values. What you're pasting special is values, and that will make sure that it copies these generated numbers, not just a blank version of the formula or something that's an error or whatever, because this is linked to these numbers. You need to make sure you tell it you want these actual values that are outputted. And that's all. But if you're using more than 2 pictures per listing, you'll have to adapt the formula a tiny bit. So first of all, you'll have to modify the numbers in the increment column to reflect the number of pictures you have. So 3 pictures, you should count by 3s here. 4 pictures, count by 4s, etc. And you can do that pretty easily. You just fill in the first few. For 2s, I have 1, 3, 5, 7. But for 3s, I'd have 1, 4, 7, whatever. I can't even. But you just put in the first few, and then you select it and grab the handle like I was just describing, and pull it down, and it should generate the rest of the pattern for you. So yeah, first put in your numbers in the increment column, and you then follow the same instructions we just went through for your first and second pictures, but at the end of the formula, delete the quote mark, add a pipe, and then paste a copy of the second part that you've already modified, and change A2+1 to A2+2, which means it will look at the number in the increment column, which in the case of the first one will still be 1, and it will add 2 to it. So your third picture will be 1 + 2, which is 3. And it will do that same thing in each column. So in the second row, your number is 3, so it will say A+3 + 2 is 5, and so on and so forth. Just repeat this process for each additional photo you want to do. So you just, at the end of it, add a pipe, copy the chunk of formula that has all your info in it, and change A2+2 to A2+3, and then A2+4, A2+5, etc. for each additional photo up until the point where you have them all, and then your formula will be ready to generate all those pictures for you. When you're at the end of however many pictures you have, put the quotation mark back at the end, and then you can do the little hit return and then pull down the handle thing like we talked about earlier, and that's it. So that is how you use the Magic PicURL Generator for 1 picture per listing, 2 pictures per listing, or up to 12 pictures per listing. And this kind of assumes that you are using AWS, but you can modify it if you're not, simply by putting whatever your host is into the your host area. And go back and watch the video series 126, which I will link in the end card, if you need to brush up on what the hell I'm talking about. Because it's a lot, and I admit that, and I hope it is helpful when you get all through it. In general, if this is useful to you, or you just like watching really boring videos about Excel formulas, please hit the thumbs up button. And please subscribe. And thank you and take care.